Hi there, welcome back to our Python for Beginners playlist. Today we will talk about comments. This is a very simple but also very important topic. Just for perspective, in university, they used to give us really high marks if we commented our code well, even if the code didn't work. So let's dive in. The comments are notes within the code cell. Unlike Markdown, which has its own special cell, comments can mix and mingle with the code. However, comments are completely ignored by the computer during execution because they are meant for people. To write a comment, you need to start with the number sign or whatever you call it, hash or pound sign. I use all three interchangeably. So this is similar to headers in Markdown, but you don't need a space after it, except for readability, of course. So you can add comments on their own line or at the end of any line of code. By at the end, I mean to the very right of it. So let's see an example. I will say I am a comment, and we're going to do something simple, just 1 plus 1. Oh, 1 plus 2, that works too. And then I am another comment. Right, so let's run that and see what happens. Right, so notice that we only get output from the calculation, 1 plus 2, which is 3. We do not get any output from either of the comments, like the top one or the one to the very end there. That's because, as we said, the computer ignores this. So also notice that the comments are some dark green, and that's to help us spot them. And this is really helpful when you have like a ton of code in one cell. So let's see what happens if we don't have the hash sign. So what I'm going to write will probably give you a hint of what's going to happen. So I am not a comment. I am nothing to Python. Right, let's run that. To Python, and normal sentence like this doesn't really mean anything. It's not part of the Python programming language. So if you forget that hash and it has to be at the very front, then you get a syntax error like here. We now know how to write comments, but what are they used for? Well, there are two main uses for comments. That's documentation and debugging. Documenting your code can help yourself, your future self, and other people understand your code. So, the first and the most important thing to do for documentation is to explain why something was done, and that's the logic behind the steps. This is important because the way that you solve problems could be different from the next person or even your future self. Sometimes I come in the next day and I don't even remember why I was doing something. So, reading the code can tell you what the computer is being told to do, but it cannot tell you why. But the programmers can. They can tell you what their original intentions were, and this can also help in identifying possible errors in the code. You can also write what the code does, which I think can be very helpful for beginners. And since these videos are for beginners, I encourage you to use comments in whatever way that helps you. However, as you become more of an intermediate, writing what the code is doing becomes less necessary because, as I mentioned, reading the code would tell you exactly that. So here's a simple example from our previous video when we created the age variable. But now we've got some documentation here. So now we know that this is Sarah's age, and also a very helpful piece of information that this is in 2010. Now, if you add the number sign at the beginning of a line of code, or even somewhere in the middle, you turn everything after that number sign into a comment, so it will not run. So let's add another line of code. Actually, let me run this first. Now, let's add another example where we are supposed to update Sarah's age to how old she is in 2023. I'll just scroll up a little bit here. But we accidentally comment out the line of code where the update happens. So let's run this. Oh my, the code tells us that Sarah is a vampire. But if we uncomment it by removing the hatch symbol, then it will update to the correct age of 45. So this can be very annoying if done by accident, but it's very useful when it comes to debugging. So debugging means checking for errors and correcting those errors in your code. If you have an error, you can comment out parts of the code that you believe is where the error is coming from to prevent them from being executed. Then you can see if those parts of the code really are the problem. So let's take Sarah's example in here. Let's say we were to do something illegal in Python, like starting a variable name with a number. So let's run that. We know we're going to get a syntax error, and it is pointing exactly where, but just imagine if you have tons of lines of code and there are other errors other than syntax error. So what you can do is, if you suspect that this is a line, you can go and comment it by adding a hash in front of it and then running it, and you see that, oh, this code works. Okay, so that's the problem line right there. And you can go ahead and try to see what is wrong and fix it. Now, just a couple of things to note before we end the video. You can write a super long comment and Python will make the cell scrollable so anyone can still read the full comment. But having to scroll is not the most fun thing to do, so I encourage you to break up the comments into multiple lines that fit within the screen so it's more enjoyable to read. And my favorite thing, keyboard shortcuts. So to comment out multiple lines of code or even one line of code, you just highlight the code that you want to comment out or even a comment that you wrote as a sentence. And you can use Control slash on Windows or Command slash on Mac, and it will turn that into a comment. And actually, it will also uncomment something. So I'll scroll back up, go to those lines of code that we have. I'm going to Control slash, and now it's a sentence again, and then Control slash again, and that's back to being a comment. Great, let's recap. Comments are notes for your code that are ignored by the computer at execution. They can be used to document code, which will help others understand the code or prevent the code from being run, which can help with checking errors and fixing them, which is also known as debugging. So that brings us to the end of this video. Thank you so much for watching. And in the next video, we're going to learn about functions, and I'll see you there. Bye.